All right. Well, next we're going to bring up Michael Dale. Mike is part of WECC's enforcement team. He's the manager of operations of enforcement. He's been with WECC for several years. We appreciate his leadership in the enforcement team, and he's going to talk about some changes and enhancements, really things we're exploring to try to improve upon the self-logging program. So, Michael, it's all yours. Take it away, please.
Thank you, Steve. And I do realize I'm standing between you and the bar, and it's past 5 o'clock for many of you, so I will keep that in mind. And the more attention you pay, the faster this goes. So let's do this. Okay, so I'm here to talk about WECC's self-logging program. It's been around for several years. I won't do a show of hands because I know that as a fact, there's not many in the self-logging program, and that's why I'm here to talk to you about it today. So I just briefly want to go over the history of the programs, some lessons we've learned from doing it for a while. I think I saw in Brent Sessions' presentation just now, he marked something as version 1.0. Well, that's where we were with self-logging, version 1.0. So we're moving on. We're going to talk about some of the benefits of self-logging, changes we're making to the program, and a pilot program that we're doing that I think will be of interest to you. So self-logging started back in 2015, and up till today, we have not really expanded the program very much. We learned a lot during this period of time, though, about getting the applications filled out, where we set the bar in order to get self-logging. And we've taken that time to think about what we've learned there. And so part of the lessons learned is we did a survey. We got the results of the survey. Maybe some of you in the room might have even participated in that survey. And if you did, thank you. But we went out to those participating in self-logging. We talked to them about what they liked about the program, maybe what they didn't like, and we got some great feedback. So thank you for that. We also realized there were some inefficiencies on our side. So to be specific, in the old system that we used, Web CDMS, those of you that were self-logging, you may know, or for those of you that don't, we required you to fill out a spreadsheet, upload it to the system, then we downloaded the spreadsheet, read it, and put it back into the system a different way. Not exactly the most efficient process ever, but we made it work for what we needed to do. So it was appropriate at the time, but it kind of wore out its time. And now that we're all on a line and everybody's moved all the way over, we have a way better way of doing this. So we've learned there. And then, as I mentioned before, previously we're at 1.0, we're moving on to 2.0. Maybe if we skipped a version like software do, sometimes we'll go to 3.0 or call it something like that. So it's even more incredible. But it's essentially an evolution of the program. And like everything, the first time you rarely get it right. And so we're learning. So the changes that we're making is, first of all, if you were go to look right now and you're interested in applying to the self-logging program, we've made it a lot easier. The application is now only about 1.5 pages long. For those of you that were active in the Texas RE region, if you've applied for self-logging there, you'll find that our form matches theirs, or is a lot closer to what their form is now. And so we appreciate them lending us kind of their practice on doing that. I would summarize it as this. In the past, when you applied for self-logging, you had to tell us all the things that you had done. And I think the reality is we know, as Scott presented earlier and Patrick, we know through a lot of our assessment of you where we think we are risk-wise. And so in the new application, we're just going to ask you to apply, and we'll do the work. We'll go to the background, and we'll look at the information we already have and see what we need to do to get you into self-logging. So the work's going to be back on our shoulder. Much easier for you to apply than it's ever been before. Next good thing, null filings are eliminated. So if any of you have ever heard that one of the pains of self-logging is when you don't have any violations, you still need to report that you don't have violations. That might seem more like self-flogging than self-logging. So we're going to change that. If you don't have in a line, if you don't have anything to report, you don't have to report anything. And we're not going to call you up and say, did nothing happen? We'll just trust that nothing happened since we didn't hear from you. Then finally, the filing interval has been eliminated. So previously people were only filing a quarterly. So sometimes if something would happen, we'd have you sit on that non-compliance for 90 days and then file it at the end of the quarter. That's no longer a thing. So now If you're in self-logging, you put it in, it comes straight to us at the time that you enter it. So that's a big improvement as well. Oh. I think I went backwards. Okay. So let me just talk about the pilot program. Everything I've talked till now is the change in the existing program. Everyone in the room is entitled to apply for self-logging, and I would encourage you to do so. We'd be happy to take a look at it. The pilot program is a little more, well, we're doing the pilot program ourselves. So what the pilot program will be is we're really going to focus from the bottom up in terms of risk. So if you are like a PV or a wind plant or some kind of small generator and you think you're low risk, you might be one of the first entities we call. We're going to start out and we're going to look at low risk entities and make our way up. When we find low risk entities that meet the following criteria, obviously low inherent risk determination, no compliance violation in the last 5 years, no serious risk audit findings at your last WECC monitoring engagement. We're just going to touch generators and generator owners and generator operators during the pilot program. And if you have a completed ICPA on file with WECC, if you meet all those criteria, then we're probably going to be reaching out to you and saying, hey, we'd like you to participate in self-logging. What can I offer to you as a result for self-logging if you join? Well, we're going to turn things around much faster. Oh, went too far. Oh, I got it backwards. Okay, we're going to turn things around much faster. This is, if you filed a self-report with us in the last 2 years, it took about 10 times longer for us to process that than it did self-logs. Self-logs literally take us weeks, not months or years. We can take weeks on a self-log because what we know coming in through the door helps us process it faster. And we also presume that those in self-logging have had the training necessary to identify not only the extent of condition, but understand the root cause and mitigate it as well. So if we have those conditions in place, we can get to it much faster. So the benefit to everyone in this room is if you file a non-compliance, there's a chance you're going to have it closed out in 7 to 14 days with a compliance exception. So that is a real benefit because I know some of you have had things open much longer. We'll continue to work on those and we're continuing to try to bring down the number of things in our open inventory. But we're also paying attention to those come in quickly and trying to get them out the door quickly. So all in all, I think the self-logging program is going to make a huge improvement. I know we're all really excited about what this means for making sure that we continue our risk focus and that we continue to drive risk-based monitoring activities through every part of our operation. That's the intent behind this. And the reason we're doing a pilot is to see if we're successful or not. So I'm going to do my best to make it a program that's worth participating in, but we're excited about it. I'm excited to have you all be part of it at some point if you qualify. So Steve, that's, I don't know if there's any questions about it, but I'm happy to answer those.
There are. Yep, we have some questions. So give me a second here.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm excited to kind of see where this goes and what the pilot reveals and kind of what interest we can find too. I mean, it's obvious that the participants that are currently participating in self-logging have given us some good feedback that they find just enhancement generally in their programs and the way things integrate. And you know, it's a testament to our knowledge that that entity is able to do risk analysis and identify its root cause. So it's a really positive thing from WECC's perspective when we know an entity is part of self-logging. But you know, obviously there's some things that need to be done there, and we'll help to make sure we facilitate that training. Can you, okay, so no serious risk audit findings at your last WECC monitoring engagement. I think we maybe need to clarify this online. Does that include guided self-search and or spot checks, or is it inclusive to audit engagement? So
We thought of it as exclusive to audit engagements.
Okay.
Or spot checks.
Yeah. What does WECC consider a compliance violation investigation? I think maybe just clarify
A compliance violation investigation is a very specific form of discovery. You would know if you had been through one. It's not a pleasant experience.
Yeah, but right. But it's part of the rules of procedure, right?
Yeah.
So we have that as a tool. It's available for us to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody will raise their hand? You had one of those? Just kidding.
When will the null attestations be removed?
When was it? It was removed when we moved to a line. So there's no last gestation anymore. That's already been done. Sorry to think about where that question landed.
Yeah, and the next one here maybe just would merit a backup a little bit, just to baseline everybody. There might be some newer folks that may not even really know what we're talking about with respect to self-logging, but what type of potential compliance issues can be self-logged, and is there a violation risk factor threshold?
I will do my best to explain that. So self-logging is when you have been determined to have certain qualities as an entity, and we allow you to do self-logging, which is basically tracking your own non-compliance, fixing it, and then reporting it to us. So some of the, I will probably not do it justice because there's a pretty good description if you want to look it up on the NERC website. So if you Google NERC self-logging, they'll describe the full program. But essentially, as Steve said, it's a reflection of our trust in your program that you can log things. So
Specific thresholds. of
minimal,
compliance.
it's minimal risk stuff. There's no specific standard you can or cannot. But if you came in and said, you know, this was a problem, we misclassified an asset at 12 plants, but like that might not go into the self-log. We might pull that out and say that's a more serious risk. But things like, for example, I'm trying to think of the last thing that I processed as a C that came across my desk. Someone entered your control room as a contractor for like 60 seconds and walked back out again, and you flagged it immediately and reported it to us. That might be something that could be a low risk. Somebody didn't sign a document in time. Somebody
36 days instead of 35.
Yeah, or something like that. Very like things that you might even shrug your shoulder and go, maybe, you know, is this a violation? Like if it's risk-based, it's probably going to be the lowest of risk. And I think most importantly, it would be of a low risk that everyone in this room would agree to. Like there wouldn't be a lot of argument about it. I think everyone in the room, I would describe it and say, is that low risk? And I would hope that 99 out of 100 you say, yeah, that sounds like low risk to me. So that's the threshold. Like it has to be minimal risk. Everything that comes out of the self-log ends up in a compliance exception. So that would tell you like kind of where we're setting the bar there.
Yeah, and that's where the interchange is, I would say, right, is because we're going to be looking to ensure that the entity can do the risk assessment of the risk to see that it properly fits within the compliance exception criteria.
Precisely.
In the same way that we would. And then, of course, we have an oversight role to check that and do check those and
Yes.
have our own sampling. But yeah, so if it's a compliance exception applicable type of violation, that's what we do. So someone's asking about the details about the self-logging application. And can you elaborate? I have my views too, but I'll let you start on the elaborating on the advantages of self-logging.
The application or the?
Yeah, start with the application.
Okay,
Oh,
so the application is available now. I won't tell you what the questions are. You can actually pull it up and take a look at it yourself. It's been updated. I approved it, I think 3 days before we showed up here. We didn't make a big announcement, but if you go down the accordion on WECC.org under the compliance page, there's an accordion about 2/3 of the way down that says self-logging. If you open that, there's a PDF application in there that you can fill out and send to us. In terms of the benefits of self-logging, if you were a PCC or an ACC, I would just highlight what I already mentioned that I think is the big advantage. One is the speed at which you can get a response. A lot of us are right. Everybody's got a boss. And if you file something, your boss is going to come to you and say, what happened to report X? And when you have to hold that for 300, 400, 500 days and say it's still open, it's still open, it's still open. I know those conversations can get a bit tiring. What's nice to say is when you file something and 2 weeks later, you're like, yep, we got it back. It's a compliance exception. It's closed. That's probably, I would say, the greatest advantage from a very personal standpoint for you if you're a PCC or an ACC is closing out those non-compliances. But I think the more important part, and Steve kind of mentioned it, and I didn't mention as much as in the presentation, I really think it's a great reflection of how advanced and sophisticated your compliance program is, not only in terms of results, but in how we've measured it and improved it too. It's a great thing to be able to go back to your company and say, we are admitted in self-logging. We're only a small part. Right now, less than 2% of our entities are in self-logging. So there was a pretty high bar. And there will still remain a high bar, but I think many more can clear that bar. So.
Yeah, and I think we can acknowledge too, that I think that self-logging initially was envisioned to create a lot of efficiencies for both the enterprise, the regional entities that are processing these, and for the entities that are part of self-logging, and we've tried to ensure that that is the case. But I think some anecdotes from around all 6 of the regions have indicated that in many respects, sometimes there hasn't been that time saving. So what we've been trying to do, and we've been working in a year enterprise discussions as well, is to try to find ways where we can regain those efficiencies. And some of that's reflected in the changes that Michael mentioned. If I could just underscore too, though, the benefits piece from a non-efficiency perspective is really the programmatic approach. So we really see that the entities that are able to be confirmed to be able to do that risk assessment and extent of condition and understand the risk of a potential non-compliance correctly as a compliance exception, just like in internal controls, enhances how we view their ability to understand how well they mitigate their risks, so too self-logging. And so we've heard from, like I said, from folks that are part of self-logging, the program enhancement benefits that they see just generally from going down that work in other areas of their compliance programs. So yeah, we think it's something that helps in other less tangible ways too.
And just so you know, the benefits are the same for us on the WECC side, right? We like processing things fast too. We like getting things in and out the door. We enjoy that just as much. And the other, I think, great part about this, or at least the pilot program, or if you apply tomorrow, is we're connecting more dots than we've ever had before in terms of what we're going to be looking at, what we already know. So all those things that you already told us, that you've been telling us, all those information that Scott was mentioning that was collected about the risk, we're going to use those as sources to make that decision. So it's really tying a lot of the things you were already doing back together with very little work for the people in this room.
What about timeliness? If we remove the quarterly timelines for reporting, will there be requirements on how soon you self-log an identified issue?
I think I don't know if there's a specific rule on it, but I presume as soon as you know you have a non-compliance, as soon as you can enter it, that's when we'd like to have it.
So this will go with part of the criteria for acceptance too, in terms of, is it possible to lose self-logging status?
It is possible to lose self-logging status. We have not taken it from anyone yet, but there are directions on how to remove it in our procedure. We just haven't come to that yet.
Yeah.
But come talk to me after you're thinking about it.
But the short answer is there's criteria to become approved to be self-logging. And if at some point you fail to have that criteria programmatically, you won't.
I do believe it has been removed in other regions, just WECC has not done it.
Mm-hmm. Is there new guidance for acceptable internal or ICPA?
There is developing, there's a draft of a new ICPA that's coming out. I don't want to
Future
steal
outreach.
anybody else's thunder, but I know it's
Future
amazing.
outreach. Yeah. Maybe just a little more flavor on where the new program is. The enhanced program, I'll say the enhanced program is located on the WECC site.
The last I looked, if you go to the WECC website and when it has it up, you go to WECC.org, you go to compliance, you go, or the compliance is either in the toolbox or it's actually it's standalone on the top. Drop down, it'll bring you to the compliance page. I think there's a couple towers that says compliance at the top. There's an accordion down at the bottom. And there's lots of bars down there. One of them, I think about 2/3 the way down, is self-logging.
Great.
There's a link in the chat.
Link in the chat. Great.
Hoover.
Okay, this is a good point because I think some of these changes we've just started to implement. So to be clear, the broader self-logging program and the rules, there hasn't been a recent change or anything to that. It's just that we've been collaborating internally and amongst the enterprise to try to see if there are ways that we can enhance how we implement what is already in existence under the rules. And so we've tried to make enhancements and improvements. And a line has been out for a while. But I think we were still requiring some things. So the question is, as of March, we were still instructed to send an email to WECC enforcement notifying there were no self-logs for the quarter, and just want to verify it's no longer required since we've moved to a line.
It is no longer required since he went to a line, but I appreciate the question. We'd be happy and it'd probably be appropriate to send out a letter to those of you that are in self-logging and explaining the changes that were made, and be happy to do that.
Excellent. Any other comments you want to add about? Otherwise, I think we're at the end of the questions.
I've got a better joke.
Okay, I hope so.
Okay, so I'm going to open it up here because I'll probably forget it.
The bar wasn't that high, I don't think.
Why did the monk meditate with a light bulb? He was seeking enlightenment. Okay, maybe that wasn't better. It was a light bulb joke.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, thanks very much. And at this time, we'll say goodbye to our virtual audience and welcome them back tomorrow. Hope to see them back as well. We've had a great set of interactions today. I thought that the participation was great. Appreciated the questions. Certainly there were a lot of them, and it's clear that there's a lot of things that we'll need to go back to try to provide some response to, because we know you had a lot of interesting questions and we weren't able to get to all of them, but we'll try our best to put together something in response to this workshop. Just a reminder again about the networking break. We'll get started